they didn't they have a writer who was actually a Filipino pastor?
Yeah, I think the writers for this one are like mostly Asian Americans.
Yeah. So I remember seeing articles by a Filipino guy, and I was like, because I saw his last name, and I was like, oh, that guy's got to be Filipino. Like it's one
Yeah,
of the
I think that would be great because like a lot of the struggles or the thinking that's happening, I at least from what I see, with regards to Asian American churches are in like Korean or Chinese churches. Not I don't see much like um, ideas, so, exchange of ideas in the Filipino pastors.
it's weird too. Like when you think about Asian cultures in general, like like um like I was asking my Chinese friend if he was going to send his Chinese kid or his kids to Chinese school, right? Because he's from Hong Kong, his wife is from Singapore, and then like they're friends at my church. Like me and Brian, actually, we were supposed to pray tonight, but his son got busy. Anyways, we, I was asking him if he was going to send his kids to Chinese school, and he was like, "I want to, but it's not feasible." But I know other parents who are like, "Yeah, we'll send our kids to Chinese school," or like, stuff like that. Um, like Filipinos, I don't, you don't have Filipino school, you know?
That's
Yeah, you don't have anything like that. I feel like Korean and Chinese culture is like very strong. So even if you are an immigrant, you understand like you keep some cultural heritage, and it's a strong one. For the Filipino, I think it's more like assimilation to whatever culture you're in, which is why Filipinos are able to like be everywhere. One of the reasons I think is like we can work anywhere, um, and we go into the culture and we're there. Now, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. But like maybe that's one of the things about the Filipino church is it's not hard to have those like tensions that are like in the Korean or Chinese churches. Maybe it's
yeah.
not maybe it's not like on that level because of how Filipinos assimilate in a different way. I don't know if that has any bearing on um, like what we're talking about, but it was just something I was thinking about. Yeah.
No, I mean it might. Like, I think Asian American churches, they have their own, like, different Asian Americans have their own struggles, right? Like Filipinos in general, at least from my experience, I don't know the statistics for it, but most Filipino American immigrants who come to the US are able to communicate in English, right? I mean, there are some who don't. Nosebleed, nosebleed. I don't understand English, or I don't want to speak in English, or I mean, I definitely had my first year in the U.S. where I'm still thinking of the response, and people who speak English are already like talking about the next subject, so I couldn't communicate because it was very hard for me to like think fast enough to know what to say, right? Like I understood it, but for me to communicate, like to have a conversation, it was very difficult. And for some people that takes longer. Like I know someone at my church, they've been here for 3 years and still very difficult for this person to like communicate, right? When it's like English. So, but that might be on him. And I think in general though, like just it, most Filipino Americans do try, and they do speak English. But yeah, I think Filipino Americans in general, we have our, like, if it was like level of difficulty, I suppose for us it's not as hard as compared to like an immigrant church that really do not understand English and don't speak English. Like I feel like that's hard, but still it doesn't. I don't want to minimize. I think there is still a difference um,
Yeah.
that is enough to uh, warrant like a Filipino American church, I think.
Yeah, I think definitely when I went to KCM, my campus ministry, I could see the difference. I could see the similarities between our church experience, but it was my first time to hear about English ministry
Yeah.
because in Filipino American churches, everything is in English except for the fellowship.
Except for the film.
But the in the other churches, they had a Mandarin service, they had a Cantonese service, they had an English ministry, and then Koreans they had KM, EM, Korean ministry, Korean church, English church. So I think, and also I had friends, like I would go eat lunch with their friends and their parents, and the kids would order food for their parents in English, and it was just like we would just be at Chipotle, and then my Korean friend he ordered for he would ask his dad what he wanted, and he would just order the food for his dad because his dad was so he didn't speak English that much, so he had to order for his dad. So I can see how like if he's in a church too, how valuable the Korean ministry is and how valuable like Mandarin Cantonese ministry is. So I think, like Aaron said, like um, there is that the Filipino American church has more of an advantage to become more welcoming and also to assimilate because
Yeah,
they already
assimilate
speak
faster
English.
maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah, they assimilate faster.
speaking English definitely helps that process.
Yeah, and I think also because American culture has been a big part of Filipino culture too. So like they know, uh, yeah, they're aware of like different American pop culture. Like my parents, they were in the Philippines, but they know like ABBA and like what else,
Dancing Queen.
Dancing Queen.
Oh my
As
god.
So
soon as
like
you
they
said
already
it,
have,
I heard the piano roll in my head.
That's
yeah.
funny.
So they still, so it's easier. I guess it's easier for them to assimilate, especially in American context, because they already have that influence from American culture before.
Mhm.